Welcome back, Ascenders, to the Ascended Thoughts Podcast. I'm your host, Mystic Rain. I've been recently talking to this really amazing woman. She's reached out to me and sort of asked me to help assist her in her spiritual journey, and I have been happy to do so. But she told me that she's feeling really tired. And in that moment, it dawned on me that this is probably something that I should talk about, mostly because this is not a her issue, it's a collective issue. So we're all very tired these days. I know I am exhausted. I know that there are a lot of people that are incredibly tired at the moment. And honestly, Ascenders, it is a collective global phenomena because of the collective global issue. This pandemic, let's call it what it is, Ascenders, it's a plague. It is a complete and total breakdown of society, of the economy, and also it is a breakdown of culture. It is a cultural depression. All of our systems are crumbling as we know it, as we see it. And what is happening is people are realizing that old systems and structures that were not built for the greater good of the collective, they were only built for the prosperity of the certain 1%, the certain elite, is not working anymore. It is not working because it is starting to be seen and noticed that everyone, and I mean everyone, Ascenders, has something to contribute to the overall thing, the overall theme, the overall reason, whatever it is that you want to call it, the greater good. We all have a part to actually play in that. And so with this, what's going on, the result of the pandemic is we are having a global sort of panic, right? It's a global worry, a global fear, a global depression. It's global anxiety. It's global panic. It's global grief and global sadness. All of these emotions and these feelings and experiences exist at incredibly low frequencies and vibration levels, and it's existing there because multiple people are manifesting those frequencies at the same time. And when I say multiple people, I'm not talking about 30 people in a park. I'm talking about multiple people as in the billions of people that exist on this planet. And when you have that many people manifesting those frequencies, those really low, dense frequencies, what you create is a density problem. The planet itself has actually become incredibly dense. The frequencies on the planet at the moment are incredibly low. And it almost feels like gravity is weighing heavier on you than it normally would. Ascenders, think about how you feel when you wake up in the morning. When you sit up in bed, I bet there's a lot of you that feel like it's just harder to sit up. It's harder to swing your feet over. It almost feels like you're heavier in your body. And I don't mean that you gained 5 pounds of, 5 pounds of corona weight. I really mean that, you do genuinely feel heavy in your body, and you may not know why. You may feel like your steps are heavier, or your steps are labored, or maybe going up a flight of stairs for some reason just feels like it's taking more energy out of you than it normally would. Maybe taking the trash out maybe feels harder on you than it usually would. It literally is because you're fighting frequencies that are creating a much denser reality that has manifested in your physical reality. And so you are actually fighting denser frequencies. So you will feel more tired. In addition to that, you also have to think about what your mind and your emotions are going through. Even for the ascenders that feel like you're making it through this relatively okay, maybe you feel like, you still have your income, or you still have your home, and maybe you feel like your family is healthy, there are still subconscious things that you are dealing with that are not necessarily existing in your awareness, because it's happening on a collective level. It's happening in the collective consciousness. Even if you haven't lost someone to this pandemic, it doesn't mean that grief is not sitting in your consciousness, in your subconsciousness, because it's sitting in the collective consciousness. It doesn't mean that pain isn't in your subconsciousness. It's there because it is in the collective subconsciousness. Worry, panic, any type of distress or depression, it's sitting in the collective consciousness. It's at the forefront of the collective consciousness, which means it resides in your subconscious. And so you're actually dealing with all of these mental and emotional struggles and battles right now, even if you are not particularly aware of it actually happening to you. So you are going to feel a lot more tired and a lot more labored. And another thing as a result of that is that you're going to feel like it's harder for you to focus, like it's harder for you to put two and two together. Your analytical and your cognitive ability probably feel like they're not as sharp as they once were, or that they were pre-corona or pre-lockdown, pre-pandemic. All of these things are incredibly normal, and everyone's actually experiencing them at the same time. Do not be hard on yourself in this particular moment. If any of you ascenders felt the opposite of what I said, like if you felt like you've had all this energy, I would actually say to you, whoa, like what is your secret? Because I'm not entirely convinced that, that is possible. And should it be possible, I'm not entirely convinced that it is something that is sustainable, just because of how intense everything is. Now, for those of you ascenders who have done a really good job of monitoring and managing your mental health and your emotional health and keeping those levels elevated and where they need to be, I personally feel like I am one of those people. My mental health and my emotional health, I think, are fairly decent in comparison to a lot of the people that I'm observing, in terms of how they're currently experiencing what's going on and how they're sort of coping with the result of it. But it does not mean that I'm not affected subconsciously, or that my body can't feel the pain itself. Because those of you ascenders that are empaths, regardless of whether or not it's in the forefront of your awareness or not, you will feel all of those collective pain bodies in other parts of your resonance. So if you're not feeling it in your mind, if you're not feeling it in your heart, then you're probably most likely feeling it in your body. What I would recommend is during this time that you spend a little bit more time dedicated to sort of stretching, to staying hydrated, making sure that you drink your water, because that'll help keep your body loose, and your body needs to be loose at this time because of the heavier density that is currently experiencing and the heavier and denser frequencies that it's currently experiencing. Your body, it does not necessarily operate within these frequency levels normally. The planet in general is a pretty dense planet. It is the third dimension. The third dimension is an incredibly dense dimension, but not like this. We're experiencing a very collective experiencing. We are satisfying and fulfilling collective karmic debt that we are all doing together. For whatever reason, we have all chosen, our souls have chosen at a higher level to incarnate at this time together to help shift. Now, so for those of you that do not know, the planet and humanity is actually shifting into the age of Aquarius, which is supposed to be a much lighter density. It's supposed to be a time that's a lot more humanitarian, where people are looking out for each other, and sort of this less selfish, gimme, gimme, gimme type of vibe that we have been dealing with. When you start doing that shift, it requires a lot of souls to incarnate to help elevate the planet. That is not a job to be taken lightly. It takes a lot of work and a lot of souls to come in and help do that. In order for that to happen, you need to have souls that have ascended to a certain place, or have an ascended perception or ascended awareness of energies and the ability to manipulate them, of higher self, of soul, of oversoul. And you need to have spirits on the planet that understand the mechanism for all of that, the reasons for all of that, the whys, the who's, the how's. And this pandemic is going to spark, and is currently sparking, a massive awakening of more of those souls that have incarnated for that particular reason as well. And you need a lot of times a crushing, a breaking of a foundation if you want to rebuild. We can't rebuild a better world when we already know that the foundation that currently exists isn't good, isn't working, has not worked for an incredibly long time. Why would you want to rebuild a world that you feel is more humanitarian on foundation that represented the exact opposite of that? And not only did it represent the exact opposite of that, it was created specifically for the complete opposite of that, which means the frequency in it is lower than the frequency we need in order to elevate the planet. So you're going to have to completely demolish it, get rid of it, tear it to pieces, and make sure that all those rocks and the things that make up the foundation is completely gone. We need to re-break the ground in order to rebuild something bigger and more beautiful. And that crumbling process, that hurts because it leaves a lot of unknowns. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen to me? Am I going to be okay? Are we going to be okay? And what happens is that there's so many unknowns that people don't know how to cope. People like and have gotten used to the idea of knowing what's going to happen tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. It's called a schedule, right? We call that a calendar. We call that a work week. There's somebody telling you that you must report to this office at 9 o'clock on Monday. And if you don't do that, then you will be punished. And when we punish you, we will make sure that you can't pay your bills and that you won't have a place to live and that you won't have any money. And if you don't have any money, you can't take care of yourself. You're going to be on the street, or you can't have a family. If you can't have a family, then who's going to take care of you when you get old? And there's this constant cycle around and around and around and around that we are on. It's the hamster wheel that society has convinced us we need to run on in order to be anything at all. And so what's happening is we are seeing a massive global stopping of that hamster wheel. Everyone has gotten off that wheel. Why? Because they have to. If they don't get off the wheel, they may get sick, right? And so what's happening is the world is now continuing without the wheel. And the powers that be are starting to become incredibly upset about that. Why is the world continuing without the wheel? We have convinced society, we have programmed society to believe that they must follow and execute these certain behaviors in order to be productive members of it. But now all of a sudden we have a global population that's not executing any of these things. And guess what? The sun still rises and it still sets. The world has not stopped. And so this is causing a huge panic. But Ascenders, you must understand that all of these things are actually working out for you in your favor. It's going to be uncomfortable because change is incredibly uncomfortable. Of course it's uncomfortable. You don't know what's next. You don't know what role you have to play with in sort of the whole grand scheme of things. You don't know how it's going to affect you. And so yeah, you're gonna be uncomfortable. Maybe you're fortunate enough to have created a life for yourself that you like, that you appreciate. But guess what? It all has to change. How everyone lives their life has to change. Your habit has to change. Your lifestyle practices have to change. And probably most importantly, your own sort of personal code of conduct, your moral character, and just the way you see the world will have to shift because old perceptions and old viewpoints are not going to be able to live in the society that is now being born. What you are seeing, Ascenders, is a death and then also a rebirth because with every death is a rebirth. That's just the way it is. It's a cycle. People think that life oftentimes is something that's linear, that exists on a spectrum, but that's not it. It's very fluid. It's very circly. It's very elliptically. There's all types of movement. As long as there is a complete cycle, that's what it is. With every beginning, there is an end. With every death, there is a birth. And what we're experiencing is a death and consequently a rebirth. And so you have to now ask yourself, which side do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the suffering side where there are people that cannot cope and deal with the fact that things have to die? Because that is the circle of life. Death is the only thing that we know for sure that happens. We all know that we will all die at some point in time, at least, for this lifetime. We will be back in more lifetimes, but that's another episode. And there is also the option of allowing yourself to step across that border and that boundary and go, you know what, I'm gonna join the rebirth side. That's gonna be the role and the part that I'm gonna play in this massive thing. I'm gonna be a part of the team that helps rebuild the society for the betterment of society, that helps rebuild society for the greater good. I'm going to contribute for the greater good in a positive way. I'm going to bring elevated and ascended frequencies. I am going to help other people raise their vibrations. I'm going to be there to teach, to guide, to assist, and I'm going to play my part. I'm going to be on the side of birth. The people that choose to be on the side of birth are going to be people that are going to experience less hardship. You're going to be people where it's not going to hurt so much for you because you're not going to be trying to resist what's already happening. The issue, Ascenders, is that there are people that are actually trying to resist what is happening. We cannot change it. We cannot stop it. We cannot reverse it. The only thing that we can do is simply go with it. We got to go with the flow. And the people that allow themselves to accept and fall into the idea and the notion that that's just now the path that they're going to take and that they're going to trust that it's going to take them to the right place, are the people that are going to get on well with what's going on in the world. Because guess what? We all have to take that path. None of us have a choice, but we can decide on whether or not taking that path is going to be harmful for us, that's going to be difficult for us, or if it's going to be a little easier for us. And when I say a little easier, I don't mean that there's going to be zero hardship for you. What I mean is that you're not going to be resisting the entire planet. And when you're not resisting the entire planet, you're in a flow with the planet. When you fall in flow with the planet, then guess what? You're in flow with energy. You're in flow with frequency. And when you get into that energetic flow, there are so many opportunities and beautiful things that start coming your way because you are in the energetic flow. Be on the team that has committed themselves to contributing to the greater good. Don't be on the team that is having a hard time letting go. Because it's okay to let go, right? Nothing in life is permanent. Nothing in life is meant to stay the way it is forever. And on top of that, why are we going to cling to systems that don't really serve our highest purpose anyway? What sense is there in that really? Like, why would you want to hold on to something that wasn't initially created to benefit you? It was created to enslave you or to program you or to convince you to be a lesser version of yourself. But what's happening is because all of those systems are now crumbling, it's starting to wipe away the fog and the smoke that a lot of people were under. That beautiful magic trick that used to be performed with all the smoke in the mirrors, there's no more smoke and there are no more mirrors. And people are starting to wake up and they're starting to realize, wait, that was a lie. Wait, that was a lie. And they're starting to understand how the government and the powers that be manipulate situations and events and stories to get you to believe what they want you to believe in order to benefit their causes. That they don't actually look out for the people like they claim to actually do. So you now have a decision to make in terms of which side of this you want to be on, because this will be written in history books. After everybody on the planet that's currently on the planet right now is long gone, there will be documentation of this event and it will be in history books. This is a significant turning point in humanity and what's currently going on. And you now have a decision to make in deciding which part of that do you want to be. How do you want them to write about you in history books? How do you want to be somebody that contributed to the overall welfare of the collective, of the world, of helping people, of assisting people, of guiding people, of creating new things, of creating new systems that is meant to be for the collective and the greater good? Or do you want to be on the other side? The side of the selfishness and the greed and the meanness and the war and the violence? Is that the side that you want to be on? Because that's the shift that we're moving from. We're moving from that low density, that low frequency, war bound, violence ridden greed to a place of humanitarian efforts and love and compassion and patience for people. We are coming into a place where people are going to be snatching their power back, fighting for their voice and their freedom of free speech, because that is something at the moment they are desperately trying to take from you. You've got platforms like YouTube that are censoring creators that are talking about things like this. So creators have to find other methods in order to talk about it, which myself being one of them, because they're now starting to delete videos off of YouTube, off of the internet. People are in a place where they're no longer allowed to speak their truth or speak how they feel, because if you start observing what everyone is saying, everyone is kind of reiterating the fact whether or not they are coming from an incredibly esoteric point of view, which is what I'm aware of I usually come from, or they are coming from a very Christian traditional view or a conservative view. Mostly what people are saying is, you know what? This doesn't sound right. Something, they're not telling us something. People are starting to wake up to the idea that they are being force-fed information that's not true, that they are being programmed. They are waking up to the fact that the education system really isn't all that great, and parents that have been forced to homeschool their children because their children couldn't go to school are now realizing that my children need to stay home anyway, that my children need to be homeschooled because the information that they're teaching them are not correct, or it's not enough substance. People are now staying home and they're now looking after their own health. And not to knock modern medicine, because modern medicine is incredibly important. It's incredibly important. People are starting to realize that it's not always helpful, that they can do a better job of keeping themselves healthy by staying home and making their own remedies. People are now starting to understand why traditional ways of life were traditional ways of life, why traditional wisdom has been around for millennia, why it's written on caves, and it's been around in tribal days, and they've all said the same thing, because there is meaning to it. There is substance to it. There is truth to it. And people are starting to wake up to all of these facts. And so as you're waking up, know that it's going to be a little bit difficult. It's going to be bewildering. You're going to be disorientated. You're going to be confused, because what's going to happen is that you are now forced to sit down and question everything you thought you knew and everything that you've been taught since a child. You are now in a process of deprogramming, which was once programmed. And that can be incredibly disorientating, incredibly disheartening. It can be anger-inducing, but it's necessary, because you have to be deprogrammed in order for us as a collective to rebuild. You can also, in a weird way, say you have to be deprogrammed in order to be able to then reprogram. So you will be feeling tired. You will be feeling confused. But I'm saying this to say that this is being experienced on a collective scale. This is massive, Ascenders. This isn't just you. So please do not feel disheartened or feel like you're the only one that's experiencing any of this, because that is not the case at all. You are a part of the collective, which means you will experience the happiness, the joy, and at the same time, the sadness of the grief of the collective consciousness. And that exists in your subconscious if you are not overtly aware of what's going on. So what I'm going to ask you to do is try to tune in to your subconscious. When you start tuning into those things, you can be overtly aware of those things, which means you begin the process of ascension. There is someone named Ralph Smart who I admire tremendously, and he says that you must tune in order to tune out. And that's incredibly true. You must tune into what's going on around you, what's happening on a collective level. When you watch things like the news, don't watch it from a internalized emotional perspective. Watch it from a very objective, analytical perspective and read between the lines. See what they're trying to tell you, because what they're trying to tell you will show you what they're trying to program into you. And know thine enemy. You need to know what's going on because it's the only way for you to protect yourself from it. So don't be so disheartened that you want to cut yourself off from the world, but allow yourself to feel empowered to understand what the world is trying to do, so then you can then go behind the world and then undo it, because we are going to be in the process of undoing everything this society has built and done over the last however many 100 years. And it's going to be a little bit painful and it's going to be a little bit rocky, but we are all in this together and you are not battling by yourself. Start sharing your thoughts with people, ascenders. I get this feeling that there's a lot of you that are not opening up about this process that you are in or what you're facing, or that there are a lot of you that are in the process of becoming more spiritually aligned and spiritually awakened, but you don't know who to talk to. You don't know if it's true or if it's actually really happening to you, if you're imagining it, or if people are going to take you seriously, but you're not imagining it. People may not take you seriously, but what you are happening is true, and I'm here to validate those things. When you begin to wake up, a lot of the times the spiritual journey is a lonely journey, but that is okay because that is why you incarnated, and we are going to work together, ascenders, in order to help lift the vibrations and the frequencies of this planet and move this planet into a new age, the age of Aquarius. Ascenders, just tune in. Tune in and you will be better for it. Understand that it's okay to be tired sometimes, and with that, it's okay to experience the irritability or the anger or the confusion and the occasional happiness and highs, but that is all a normal part of the process, and you, in fact, are not alone. Stay inspired and keep ascending.